The minute I found out that I had a girl in the delivery room, I'm like, okay, she's gonna go into pageants. I put Kiana in the first pageant when she was 6 months old, and she won. Actually, won like she was second runner-up in that pageant too.
With a group of guys about video games and cars, to a conversation about Greek mythology and the Roman campaign, and then still talk about sports and football and everything else.
And it scared the cop had the, the hands on the gun and the whole nine. And this is about the same time that Amadou Diallo got killed in New York by the police. So when you talk about George Floyd, it's not the Black Lives Movement, and that whole thing does not start with George Floyd. It started with Eleanor Bumpurs, Amadou Diallo, and the hundreds of other people.
I'm very much a optimist. I'll look for the brighter side of the entire situation.
And I must say that when I told you about the homelessness, that was real. We lost everything, and it's like we didn't even have a permanent address.
Black friends. I had a couple white friends. I would be outside playing with them, and the neighbors would come out and look like, why? Who is this? Are you from here? And then check with my friends' parents to make sure I was supposed to be there. When me and my brother were both told, oh, you're talking white right now. You're talking real white. I'm typically in the gym for about 3 hours a day. Here's the biggest secret. Guys, we can change like this. But girls can sometimes be a little vicious. I've actually had a girl, she stepped on the train of my dress and ripped it. Or you have girls that hide people's shoes. You have some people that hide swimsuits or eyelash glue and put it on dresses. I've actually been the girl to change my entire outfit because one girl's outfit wasn't working. I said, okay, here you go, take mine, it's fine. She won.
Welcome to the show. You're with me, Karan, on the Hardship podcast, and we talk about everything about health and fitness, and a lot of things between that. And it's so interesting to have a special mother-daughter episode on this show with your mom, who is also a pageant holder of her time. And now you are a Miss Global of your, runner-up Miss Global of your time. So, tell us a little bit. I know a lot about your family. I mean, you've come through some really, really challenging times, which people probably don't realize when they see the glamorous you. So,
right.
Tell us a little bit about your childhood, your growing up, and all the, how the experience was, and your and also I'd love your mom to tell us about her memories of you growing up, and I know that she is a single mom, so congratulations to her as well for having a daughter who is at the global stage. So tell us about your childhood a little bit.
So I grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And of course, as you just said, I was in a single parent home with my mom and as well as my grandparents. My grandfather was a retired police officer, and my grandmother she's a retired teacher's assistant as well. So she was in the school systems with me, actually. So I had my grandmother in the school with me. And my great grandmother was there as well for a little while. So obviously my family is very close. It was me and my brother in the house. So I would always hang out with him, and I was always following around him and his friends and trying to play sports and have fun and hang out with them and kind of be like one of the guys in a sense. And so I got all the scars on the knees, and we just had, it was a good childhood. We had a lot of fun, and we made the best out of every situation.
So I'd like to ask her mom, what are the memories of Kiana that you remember? Some things which of her when she was the earliest memories of Kiana, which you remember, the crazy memories.
The crazy memories. The minute I found out that I had a girl in the delivery room, I'm like, okay, she's gonna go into pageants. I put Kiana in the first pageant when she was 6 months old. And she won, actually won, like, she was second runner up in that pageant too. I don't even remember the name of the pageant, like, way back then. But she's always wanted to do things like me. I modeled, so I would put her in shows at our church or the community or the high school, everything that in our city, we have different programs, and the programs would include, different fashion and pageants and everything that they required participants. I would put Kiana in, or I would put my son in other events too. I did not want to push her during her teen years to be in pageants because I wanted her to make her own decisions. And I said, you tried, when she was a little girl, she tried the little pageants. And then when she got to be a teenager, I gave her a choice. I put her in one teen pageant and she did okay, but she did not win that pageant. And I gave her the choice. She could either be in pageants or you could do the modeling. Well, she preferred to do the modeling, and she did that for a little while too. And then she decided at some point, we made the vast mistake of putting her in the Miss New Jersey USA pageant before the teen pageant, because we didn't even do that route, and that was a total disaster. Yeah, it was total. She did not, she was in that a few times. And, like I said, it was a disaster because we did not know the system as well as we thought we did. We didn't understand how gowns were supposed to be, purchased or any of that stuff. But then, she started entering the smaller pageants. She started winning the smaller pageant. And then she ended up going to, to the international pageants on 2 different ones. And she did pretty well in both pageants representing the United States. But she was the little girl that used to do, I looked at pictures, and I'm going to try to go find some pictures and show you in a minute, because she used to always try to wear my clothes. She was like 7 and 8 years old trying to wear my clothes and my coats and everything else. She's my mini me.
Sure. Very true.
So you obviously, you've been a pageant family. So you're probably the best, and you've seen how they were and how they are now. So what is your best advice, not only for pageants, but also to grow up, to raise a winner like Kiana? What would you like to tell parents about raising a child who is as well balanced and, beautiful both from the inside and the outside? How do you do it?
Okay, first you have to have a foundation, and that foundation is, with us, it's a spiritual foundation. We have a church, what we call our church family. I grew up in this church. I was born into this particular church, and Kiana was, when Kiana and her brother came along, they were baptized in this church. I got married in that church. She was christened in that church. My parents are actually married in the same church. So it's been this particular church, and I'll say the name, Mount Teman Church in Elizabeth, has been our church, our family church home for over 50 something years, 60 years. Because my grandmother started out in that church. So that's our foundation. And whenever Kiana competes, the congregation and the pastor always support her. And if you were to go on her, social media page, you always see a reference from Pastor Britt and the Mount Teman family. So that's the first thing, a solid foundation. Because once you decide to compete in pageants, you have to be able to think, put God first, and then everything else follows through. Kiana is a very humble person. Most people look at her and they say, oh, well, she's probably stuck up and everything, but she's not. She's the most humblest, down to earth person you could possibly meet. And at times I have to keep pushing her and say, Kiana, you can do this, you can do that. Because sometimes she looks at herself, she says, Mommy, I'm not this person. I'm not like that. I can't compete against this person. And I have to keep telling her, Kiana, look at yourself. You're gorgeous. I have to keep telling her this. And she'll sit back and then she'll look, oh, yeah, well, maybe, maybe I'll do this. And maybe I push her because I want her to be successful. Same thing, my son, he's into sports and he's into music and stuff. Both my children. If you notice in Kiana's talent, she did a martial arts event portion. She learned that from her brother, because he teaches. He's a black belt in martial arts, so he taught her that. So my kids are.
So I would also say for entering into pageants, I would say let your kid make the decision, because she definitely let me make my own choice on if I wanted to do it or not. And I mean, there's been times where my depression would get to me and I would let it kind of sink in, and I've mentally retired about 3 or 4 times. It's like, no, I'm done. I can't do this. And it's not even that she forced me back into a pageant. My mom would always just talk to me and say, you know what, pray on it, relax. Don't let what you're feeling right now, like, keep you from achieving what you want to achieve. So she definitely just lets me make my decision for me. And it always comes back to, this is what I want to do. So then she'll come in and say, okay, then we'll keep.
Is that all that it takes to be to raise a girl like you? Because if you give everybody the decision to do whatever they want to do, it doesn't always work out this way. So there must be, what are the other things that the principles you raised her on that made her what she is today?
It's about family. Family, God first, then family. If you don't have a family behind you and your family supporting you, you're pretty much gonna go into something with the feeling that no one cares.
Yeah.
And you will see my mother, I'm there, her brother, everybody rallies together and we push it. If she wins, we're there. If she doesn't win, we're also there. We encourage her. We encourage everybody in our family encourages each other, because my dad was the kind of person before he left here, he said to me, take care of the family, make sure the family stays together. So that's the principle that I was brought up on, and I try to pass it on to my kids too. So my mom is if you see us, we're like the three amigos. There's 3 of us all the time. We're like, what's the charmed ones? Power of 3. So that's how we look at it.
So you're basically like, it's like the 3 musketeers winning in life.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously that's not going to be every girl's outlook on it, or how they're going to go into pageantry. It is going to be a lot of work, and it's going to be yes, it has to be their decision. And a lot of times there's people who make the wrong decision on the route to go with. And a lot of times there will be the delayed decision on, okay, I'm going to wait, I'm going to keep waiting, and I'm going to keep waiting. And then it comes to a point where for some competitions, you've aged out and you've missed your opportunity, or it was a good year for you to go in and you've missed that opportunity. So for me, sometimes just throw caution to the wind. If you feel like you can't do it, then you probably should do it at that moment. If you feel like you shouldn't do it, then that's the moment where you have to really think about it. Can and should is 2 different things for me.
So you when somebody looks at you, they think that you're probably grown up in great comfort. But I know the stories behind you. Your home was completely destroyed, and that's quite amazing. Tell us what happened and how you bounced back from where you were, and the challenges that you had to face to reach here.
I honestly just made sure I just stayed with my family. Like, my main thing was keeping us all together. So I made sure that whatever I would typically work, I doubled it, just so that I can make sure that we were all good and we were all together. My mom did the same thing. So it was more of I placed a goal, and the goal was keeping us at a point where it was still okay, that we can still rest easy. So yes, it was stressful. Yes, it was a lot of crying and screaming and asking why, what is happening. But at the same time, it's just like, you know what? We're still all here. I'm very much a optimist. I'll look for the brighter side of the entire situation. So it's like, okay, the house is gone, but my family's here. Okay, I don't have some of my pictures from school or some of my trophies that I've won, and my mom lost things, lost clothes and pictures and videos and all those things that were important to us, but we're still here. So we may not have them, but we can recreate it, or we can make something better. So I always look towards that brighter moment.
So your home was, it was a tornado that destroyed your home?
Hurricane.
We got hit with a hurricane,
Yeah.
and then we got hit with a whole. It's a lot of. It's a. To me, trying to explain everything is kind of crazy. It's like a domino effect. Once you lose one thing one way, everything just tumbles and goes by the wayside. And I must say that when I told you about the homelessness, that was real. We ended up having to move into. Basically, we lived in our car for like a couple days.
Yeah.
A daughter, my mom, my son, and the dog. We have a pit bull. We had a pit bull puppy at the time, and because most of the places we wanted to go to would not take animals, and then we finally found a place that took animals. Mm-hmm. Our church helped us. They put us up for for a couple of weeks. Yeah, we had to move into a hotel, and we lost everything. And it's like we didn't even have a permanent address. And then the people we went to wanted us to give them information that we didn't have, and we had to find paperwork. It was just a mess. And we're still reeling from stuff, and we're still trying to get back into a permanent, a home and whatever else. But it'll come. Everything happens for a reason. My mom used to tell us that all the time. Everything happens for a reason. And God, as long as God is in control, we're good. So as long as we're healthy, even with this pandemic thing going on, we're still together. No one's sick. We were able to travel to her nationals, come back, put ourselves in self-quarantine, and we're fine. So, people look at it and say, oh, woe was you, and blah, blah, blah. And nobody wants to hear the bad parts because they don't understand. But when you look at it, as long as you have life in your body, you live to see another day, you can move on to the next level. And we have a good, not only church family, but we have some really, really good pageant friends. Yeah. And when we were having our issues, we put it out there. I mean, the donations that came from girls who were in pageants with Kiana, their parents, our church, they donated cash and stuff to us, and one day I tell them when I hit the Powerball, I'll pay them back. But, those things happen. You have to have, like I said, a foundation. And people say, I don't need anybody. No man is an island. That's not true. If you tell people and, share your story with them, then people say, why didn't you tell me? I would have helped you. But, sometimes you don't want to go to people because you're trying to be humble and you don't want to be embarrassed. So you don't tell. That's why I told you that story was between us, because I did not want people to know all of that.
So, I mean, it's perfectly fine. Like, I'm not ashamed of the story. Like, I'm fine with it because I still have I don't quit attitude. Like, it's a situation, yes, but it has not stopped me. It will not stop me. I'm going to keep on going. So I'm going to keep competing in pageants. I'm going to keep modeling. I'm going to keep acting. What the situation is does not change what my goal is.
And You obviously, I must touch upon this slightly sensitive subject of being a person of color. And since it's been so much in the news, especially after the George Floyd incident, uh, and you were telling me some incidents which were really crazy about growing up. How was it, both, I mean, your mom and you, how was it growing up as a person of color, and what were the feelings as you grew up?
You want her story or my story? Because my story is different because I'm older.
Yeah.
Both. Let's start with your story.
Okay, my story begins moving into my parents, when they bought their house, they were the first Black family in that neighborhood. And the people who sold the house to them, their neighbors were pissed because they sold to Black people. This was in the 50s, okay? When they in America, there was still the civil rights movement hadn't even started yet. My father was one of the first Black police officers in the city at the time. So moving into our house where we were classified as being middle class at that time. I and my brother, we went to a school that was so-called out of district, which was on the other side of town. The way they had the school districts separated within our city, if you went past a certain time, you were considered, a certain line, you were considered out of district, even though you were in the same city. So my father had a lot of powerful friends in the city. So they were able to send us out of district, which was only basically across town. So I was one of the first Black kids in that school. This school was pretty much, most of the kids were children of doctors and lawyers, and most of them were Jewish, or there was some Italians and Germans. And, I was around white kids. So I didn't see myself as being the Black kid because I was with them, and I didn't even realize about racism until I didn't understand about the civil rights movement and Dr. King, and because my parents went to the March in Washington and the whole nine. I didn't understand that until I remember Easter week. It was an Easter weekend in '68, April '68, when we went shopping for shoes, and we came back home, and my grandmother whispered to my mom as we walked in, "They shot Dr. King." I had no idea what they were talking about. They turned on the television. I remember them watching TV talking about Dr. King's assassination and people rioting and stuff like that. I did not realize all of that because I was a young kid. I went to school. I did stuff as a child. My parents had a camper. We went on camping trips. We went a whole bunch of places. I did not realize about racism until I was the kind of kid that wanted to do dancing and modeling and music and stuff. And I was always in the newspaper because I was doing these things. Until one day, one of my teachers, and I'll never forget this, I think she was like my third grade, fourth grade teacher. And she said to me, "Oh my God, you're acting like a little Stephen Fetchit." And I did not know what she meant. And I'm like, okay, I did not know. 2 years later, I looked it up and found out who Stephen Fetchit was. And I started realizing people started looking at me differently. I didn't hear the N-word until I was in a karate class and some kid called me that, and it just clicked. So then we really had a fight because that was not a good thing. But I grew up with my kids, doing stuff and going places and not looking at color as a barrier. But it started coming to me because, I looked at police officers because my dad was a cop. Police officers were my friends. Yeah. These are people that I grew up with knowing that, they protect you, blah, 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 blah. But you don't have a reality check until you start riding down the street and you're stopped. And there's no reason for you to be stopped. Or you're in a certain town and you get pulled over and the police are asking you, "What are you doing over here? Where are you going? Can I see your license and stuff?" Because you're long from home. And that kind of reality starts hitting you, and it hits you hard, and you're sitting there trying to be the good citizen, and you, yes sir, no sir. Then you start to realize this cop does not like you because you're of a certain color. and then it starts hitting you. The incident that you're talking about is we were going to I was bringing one of my kids' friends home, and we were coming outside, and I was taking them home, and the police pulled up on us, and they shined the flashlight in our faces, and they said, "Get against the fence." We were like, "What's going on?" I sat with my kids. I told my son, "Run in the house and get Pop-Up. Just call my father." And they went and got my father, and in the meantime, they're checking us for our ID. This is in front of my own house. Checking for ID, asking us why we're out, who we are. And he says to my son, "Who are you?" "I don't know who you are." I'm like, "You're not supposed to know who you are," who he is, because he doesn't do anything. He's not in a gang. He doesn't hang out in the street. My kids are good kids. And it scared, the cop had the hands on the gun and the whole nine.
So Kiana, has your experience been different, or tell us?
Fairly similar. I mean, if you think about it, technically mine started
What was
with,
your childhood been? Did you ever, what was the first time, did you experience any kind of such incidents or, feelings?
I never really thought about color because I grew up in a mixed area. So I did have Spanish friends. I had Black friends. I had a couple white friends. So I never thought about it until I would go into the like suburban areas where my white friends would be, and then I would be outside playing with them, and the neighbors would come out and look like, who is this? Are you from here? And then check with my friends' parents to make sure I was supposed to be there. And I couldn't understand what was wrong. I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's just because we're outside and we're kind of loud because we're running around screaming like kids do. But it was mainly just because I was there, and it bothered me. But it's just like, okay, I was a kid, so again, me being the optimistic person, I'm just, okay, it's fine, They don't understand. I'm new over here. I'm not really from here, so I kind of just have to go with it. And that's always just what I did. I just like, okay, I just quietly just keep on going with it. You don't get it. And that was always my outlook on it. All right, you don't get it. That's fine. So I never really, I knew in certain areas I had to, I don't want to say act a certain way, but I knew that how I looked affected the area that I was in. So either it was a problem, so-called problem that I was there, but I knew that I was still supposed to be there. It was fine that I was there.
Down.
And that was just my experience from it. So I never really worried about race because I'm mixed. So to me, it's just like, as long as my skin is still this color, I know for certain people, it'll be a problem. And then it was one time where I just knew there was an issue in the world when me and my brother were both told, "Oh, you're talking white right now. You're talking real white." And it made me laugh because I looked at them. I was like, I don't understand what that even means. I'm talking what? Do you mean I'm speaking proper English? Is this a shock to you? I have an education. I have a very good education. I go places. I do things. And I have some people, "Oh, you've been out of the state?
I know, right?
You've been out of the country?"
This was
Yes, I travel.
She's a role model to a lot of people in our city, in our neighborhood, because our city has a reputation of being a bad place. But when they hear about Kiana and they see she's gone to Malaysia, she's been to Thailand, she's been everywhere, they're like, "Oh my God, that's what's up. Kiana's doing her thing. Yeah, she's my girl because she's doing so much. She's been on television." They're actually enthused because somebody who they consider one of them, they grew up in the hood, as they say, she's doing stuff. And they look at her like, wow, she's, they love seeing her.
Yeah.
They may not be doing the best in the world, but they look at Kiana because she's doing so much. So, it's a positive, there's positives in everything.
Yeah.
And the mayor of the town and city council and she has proclamations from the our state assembly because she's done so many positive things.
So me growing up, race, obviously it has changed. I wouldn't always say
So it's better.
It is better from what my mother grew up with, from what my grandmother grew up with, but is it to the point where we need it to be? No. Can we get there? Sure. It's going to take a lot of time and people will put in some effort, but we'll get there eventually.
So Kiana, when did you decide that you wanted to do like this pageant, the Miss Global pageant, and were you already, why Miss Global? And then how did you prepare for it?
So I chose Miss Global because one of my good friends who I met through pageantry, my pageant sister, Thalia, she told me about this pageant. She gave me a message on Facebook and was just like, you have to go for this pageant. Like, it's a beautiful system. The directors are great. Just go check it out. So I was just like, at that point, I felt like I was kind of just like, I need a break from it. I looked into it, but I was just like, I don't know. I'll think about it. And then I was just like, you know what? I might as well go for it. And for me going out there the first time and speaking to them, I was taken back because I was like, this is such a breath of fresh air because everyone was so great. I mean, all the other pageants I've been in, they have been great, but this one, it felt different. It felt really like a family, a really close family. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go for this one. And me preparing, when I first started out preparing for it, I said, okay, I had to get my mind correct. So I prayed on it, I got focused, I made sure that my confidence was together, and I said, okay, I know who I am. Now let me see the best way I can portray this. How can I show who I am? Because I know I've changed throughout the years. Let me give something different. And that's always where I start when I'm preparing for a pageant.
So how do you show who you are?
The best way that I show who I am is, it's partly from my fashions, because I am a very fashionable person, but I know I don't try to keep with what is in trend. I keep to what I feel. So if I'm feeling really sporty, then my whole wardrobe is going to be kind of a sporty look. You're going to see like bright colors, and it's going to be really, I want to say 90s Spice Girls type, that 90s Spice Girls type thing. And that'll be my look. If I feel very classic and very Marilyn Monroe, everything is going to be very subtle, and it's going to be very subtle changes and very more, I want to say, of a wavy type look. So I'll keep it to that type of feel throughout the entire time. And that's just how I go with displaying who I am, as well as the different things that I know. For an interview, I'll talk about what I've changed in my life and where I am at that time and where I'm going.
So what have you changed in your life?
So in my life, I make sure that I change on my outlook of things, because before I was like, okay, I'm going to learn a lot about a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn a lot about acting. I'm going to learn a lot about modeling, and I'm going to learn a lot about photography. So during a few years ago, those were my main focuses. I made sure I learned everything that I possibly could about that. And then I said, time to change. I'm going to learn a little bit about a lot. So I made it to a point where I got all my subjects, and I would go ahead and learn a few things here and there about different subjects. So I learned about archaeology, and I learned about paleontology. I learned about Greek mythology, Roman mythology, every little thing that I was into. I learned every little bit about it. So that way it was to the point where, okay, well, I heard this about this subject, and okay, this is what we're talking about. I learned this, and this is a factor. So that was one thing. And then I said, you know what? Why limit myself? I feel that I am a boundless person. So let my knowledge be boundless. So I said, I'm just going to learn whatever I possibly can. So I took each subject and I just engrossed myself into it. And that's how I kind of changed my outlook on different subjects in life.
So do you give people a complex?
For my personality, or with me? What do you mean?
Your knowledge, as well as the fact that you're beautiful.
I like to say it's a fun contradiction, because people like to assume that I'm not going to know a lot, or I'm going to know a lot about the basic things that a beautiful girl would know, which would be makeup and hair and fashion. No, I also know a lot about other things. So I like to kind of throw them off a little bit.
And what is their reaction when you throw them off?
How did you know that? Really? That you actually know something about that? Yes. The same way I also can sit back and have a conversation with a group of guys about video games and cars, to a conversation about Greek mythology and the Roman campaign, and then still talk about sports and football and everything else.
Wow. So how did you have physically, have you always been very physical, and are you into fitness? How did you prepare yourself for the event? Because you've been a model, so I assume that you've always been relatively fit.
Yeah, I've always been into sports. My grandfather actually constantly had us in sports when I was younger. So I did a lot of track. I did softball. I did basketball. He had us ice skating, and everything was very active. For my high school years, though, and if you ask my gym teacher, he will say this with full confidence: you could not get me to run around the track just for an A. I said no. During my high school time, I kind of just took a step back from it, and I didn't want to be told you have to run. I wanted to make the decision to get into the gym and be active. So once I got back into the idea of working out and going into the gym, I fell in love with it all over again.
So what do you do in the gym? Like, tell us exactly what you do.
I like doing CrossFit, actually. CrossFit training is so fun for me because I love the idea of going for the run and then lifting weights and keeping that momentum going on a constant basis. Because I've been into wrestling since I was a kid. So that's always been like the mindset of the wrestler who has to lift and then move and then run and then blitz. And it was just the idea of a constant momentum of keep going, keep going. You're tired, but keep going. You're tired, but keep going. So that was my thing. So it still is my thing. I would love to be in the WWE.
Wow. So how long is your fitness? Like, what time do you get up and what do you do? What's your daily routine like? And tell me, like how long do you do CrossFit? Like, let's go over it really, really in depth.
I'm typically in the gym for about 3 hours a day.
Wow.
That seems very intense, but once I have kind of a goal, I kind of really push myself. So when I first get up, I do a 10-mile walk run, and then I'll rest for that. Then it'll be 3 hours in the gym, and then rest, and then I'll probably do some quick yoga just to keep my body stretched. And I'll usually work out between 3 to 6 days out of the week, depending on what I'm doing or what I'm feeling at that time.
So what time do you get up and what time do you sleep? What's your day like?
I usually get up around 7 or sometimes earlier, depending on what I have to do in the day. If I have a lot to do during the regular day, I'll make sure I'll get up earlier so I can get everything done before that. I'll start my day off every morning with walking my dog, and we'll be out there for maybe 30 minutes to an hour, depending on, again, what my day is looking like. And after I'll do that, I'll make sure I'll have a good breakfast. I'll make sure that I get all
What's breakfast? What's kind of breakfast do you like?
A healthy day would probably be like a quick egg white omelet, but on an unhealthy day, I'll go with some pancakes and eggs and some hash browns or something like that. Give me the IHOP grand meal and I'll be happy.
Wow. And so, I think pageants are quite an interesting event in which you have like 20 or whatever, 20 girls. They all are reasonably similar in capabilities, and you have to win against them. So I think it's a lot to do with the mind. And, how did you, or even how do you keep your mind calm, and like, do you ever feel depressed or do you ever feel down? How do you always remain positive?
I make sure that I pray before I do things. I'll sit back and I'll meditate. And occasionally if I'm not at the pageant, I'll play with my dog or I'll play video games. If I feel really down, I'll sit back and I'll play Call of Duty or something, or 2K18, anything just to kind of relax and just take myself away from the situation to really kind of focus on it after my mind is in a calmer place.
And that's what helped you in the pageant as well?
Actually, yes. Sometimes for pageants, you can't be, if you're so focused on the pageant, you'll start to think about the doubts. And you start to doubt yourself and say, okay, can I really do this? Is this going to be too much? Can I really make sure that I have everything that I need? And if you already know that you have everything going on that right path to where you need to be, you don't have to stress yourself completely when it's getting down to that point. Just learn to relax, breathe through it. Take yourself out of that mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm panicking, I need to get this done, this has to be perfect. As long as you're showing up as you it's already perfect.
And what has been some of the most down times in your life when you really had to work at being positive?
I would probably say a few years ago during another pageant that will remain nameless, I was very stressed, and I was in a really bad headspace. And honestly, it probably wasn't my best performance or my best showcase of me, because I did at that time let doubt and let my own stress and anxiety get to me, and it showed. It affected my entire performance. In that pageant I didn't even place. So going into it, I knew I should have taken a step back and just waited, but I kind of forced myself into it because I put in the commitment already. So I said, okay, I've already committed myself. I'm just going to do it, good or bad. I'm going to do this. And in the process of doing that pageant, it still kind of weighed a lot on me. Even after, it kind of made my depression just a little bit worse. But after it was all done, I took the moment to reflect on my performance and what I was feeling. And I said, okay, my performance was because of this. I need to fix this. And that's what I did. I made sure that I started preparing myself better and stopped allowing the naysayers and my own self-doubt get the best of me.
So how do you win a pageant? Because is it because you are physically better than them? Is it because you're mentally better than them? Is it because you're prettier than them?
It's all just, it's where the ball falls. You have to think about it like that. If you're playing a game of chance, because that's what pageantry is, you're playing a game of chance.
Is it totally a game of chance?
Yeah, because I mean, different judges, different night, different atmosphere, anybody can win. Just because, I mean, I can go in there, have the best everything, but a girl who has even half that, but her energy is different, or the judges see something that has that little shine to it, then she could be the winner over me. So it doesn't always have to be, oh, it's the prettiest person, it's she has the perfect this and the perfect that. It's not about that. It's all about chance. The judges have different mindsets at all times. Organizations need different things, require different things. And it's all depends on who is coming up and, again, where the ball falls. And if it falls on, if it doesn't, that's fine. It was not my time.
So tell us some, pageants are something like Star Trek where no man has gone before. So tell us something about, and every man wants to know what happens behind those closed doors and with all those beautiful girls who are getting dressed for pageants. So tell us some of the behind the scenes incidents which you experienced in pageants.
Well, here's the biggest secret. Guys, we can change like this. Forever to get ready for a date, but really, if we know what we're wearing, we know what the look is, it's like that. It's an instant. Everything is just changed. Clothes will be flying all over the place. We change in an instant. So that's the first trick. The craziest thing I've seen, funny or just wow moments, because I've seen the wow moments where it would be girls having total meltdowns because they left a dress or something in their room and they can't get to it, and now they're freaking out. I've seen moments where it's just that beautiful moment where there was one girl who she couldn't find her swimsuit. There was a girl that was on stage. She quickly did her walk, got off stage, changed super quick, gave the other girl her swimsuit so she can go out and compete. So that was a super wow moment. But also there's something called butt glue to keep your swimsuit to you. But if you don't have butt glue, hairspray works. We'll use hairspray. The pageant world is just so interesting and always changing. I feel like guys would not fully understand it.
So what are the weirdest things that you've seen in pageants?
Weirdest thing. People falling on stage would be like one of the craziest moments I've seen. Weirdest moment would be the wrong girl going out and just standing on stage, and then one of the helpers in the back had to come out and help her off the stage and tell her that she wasn't supposed to be there. That was a great moment. But girls can sometimes be a little vicious. I've actually had a girl, well, it was one of the parents. She stepped on the train of my dress and ripped it. And I only freaked out for a second. It was just like a second. But I figure, no one should see a giant hole in the back of my dress. It was seen. It was seen. It was fine. But, that's just things that go with the territory. You have girls that hide people's shoes. You have some people that hide swimsuits or take eyelash glue and put it on dresses. It can get crazy. I don't think it's necessary. I've never done any of that. So I've actually been the girl to change my entire outfit because one girl's outfit wasn't working. I said, okay, here you go. Take mine. It's fine. She won. Ironically, I'm just like, there you go. It's fine.
So how was it to compete in this area, in this time of Corona? You were doing a beauty pageant with masks on your face and 6 feet distance, and it was different.
It was safely interesting. Yeah, our director made sure that everything was completely safe for us, and she made sure that we were comfortable and we were having fun. Yes, we had to be distanced. Yes, there was moments where it was like we wanted to hug each other, but we knew we couldn't. So it was just like, hug from a distance. It's fine. When we do have the chance to not have this going on, I'm sure everybody will feel a lot better and more comfortable. But I mean, competing in a pandemic, who would have ever thought that would ever happen? I never thought in my lifetime I would actually go through something like this. But I mean, we have to kind of roll with the punches.
True. So tell us about, everybody wants to know, how do you date such a pretty girl? So tell us about what you look for in a guy and what would make you, would turn you on or make you happy with somebody.
First thing I need is a guy with patience, because being in the pageant world, it takes a lot of time There's a lot of moving around and interviews and a lot of traveling. So there's not always going to be a lot of time for dates or hanging out or just the typical thing that couples do. So someone with a lot of patience, someone with a caring heart, super family oriented is important to me, obviously. Someone that has a good connection, a good spiritual connection. Funny, can be somebody I can be goofy with would be great, because like I said, I'm still kind of like just a big kid, so I like to play video games, but at the same time I know that I'm an adult, so I know I still have to make, appearances and everything and make life decisions. So somebody who I can do those things with would be perfect.
And what's been the craziest instances with guys, which I'm sure you had your share of them.
I mean, I've had a few, but for some reason, nothing is really sticking out to me. Guys, when it comes down to dating, it takes a lot. So guys mostly already assume, she's taken, she's pretty, she's a pageant queen and model and stuff. So, I mean, it's always that moment of, I'm not going to talk to her. So it's that old school moment of the guys on one side of the dance floor, the girls on the other side of the dance floor, and nobody wants to talk to anybody.
So more guys should get over and talk to you.
Make the attempt. Fine, I don't bite. Like, my crown will not fall off. It's okay.
Well, Kiana, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and it's been so lovely to hear your mom's and your story. So more power to you for the future, and thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.